Today we have Ted Passon and Kyla Harris, the director and producer, respectively, of Patrice the movie. Fight for change with us. You can go to patricethemovie.com.
The movie's a lot more fun than it sounds.
Yeah.
Patrice got invited to the White House to a dinner there and was sat right next to President Biden at dinner.
Welcome to the Wheel With It podcast with your host, Devon. Let's get into the episode.
Hello. Welcome to another episode of Wheel With It. My name is Devon Readers, and today we have a very special episode of Wheel With It. Today we have Ted Passon and Kyla Harris, the director and producer, respectively, of Patrice the movie. And what Patrice the movie is about is a woman named Patrice, hence the name, and her partner, Gary Wickham, who they both have disabilities, and they want to get married, but they cannot because of the way the Social Security / Medicaid benefits are set up. And it's about their fight in what they call the Social Security marriage penalty, and be able to get married and keep their Social Security and Medicaid, because Social Security and Medicaid go by the same limits in most cases. And I am personally affected by this topic. There is legislation out there to fix this, and two of those bills are the SSI Restoration Act and the SSI Savings Penalty Elimination Act. And there are two more bills, which honestly I don't know off the top of my head. Well, if you want to fight for change with us, you can go to patricethemovie.com. That is patricethemovie.com if you're based in the US, and click on Take Action, and it'll take you to where you can write to your representatives and tell them to pass this law. All you do is click on Take Action, fill out the little form, write a little letter saying, hey, I support the SSI Restoration and SSI Savings Penalty Elimination Act, and it will send it directly to your representatives. And like I said, this directly affects people with disabilities like me and like millions of families all over the country. And so this really needs to be changed. I hope you enjoy the podcast. I hope you guys will fight for change with us. Enjoy my conversation with Ted and Kyla. Just taking a quick break from the show to remind you to subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening to this, or go to wheelwithit.com/subscribe. And if you subscribe on YouTube or Spotify, hit the bell. It really helps us out. So subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening by hitting the subscribe or follow button, or go to wheelwithit.com/subscribe. Now back to the show. Hello, welcome to another episode of Wheel With It. My name is Devon Readers, and today is one of those days that I cannot believe that this is my job, because we have Kyla Harris and Ted Passon. They are the producer and director, respectively, of Patrice the movie on Hulu, which you guys should go watch immediately. We're going to let them tell you what it's all about. But Ted and Kyla, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Tell us about yourself, and then tell us what exactly Patrice the movie is all about.
Do you want me to, was that a nod to me, Ted, to go first?
Either way.
A glance.
Yeah.
I'm Kyla Harris, and I am a UK-based Canadian filmmaker, writer, and performer. And on Patrice the movie, I produced it alongside Imbo Shim and Emily Spivak. And Patrice the movie is about a Black disabled woman in America who finds the love of her life, Gary Wickham, and they want to get married, but they can't without risking losing their benefits. And so it's about their...
Because they're both disabled.
Yes.
Okay.
That's a great, yes. I'm also disabled myself and have experienced the same barriers, let's say, in Canada and the UK, because the marriage penalty exists in so many countries along with the US.
So tell us about, in the US at least, and in the UK too, the current laws and why they make it so difficult, and how they count assets and salary and stuff like that.
I could say in the US at least, basically the short version of it is that if you collect Medicaid benefits and Social Security benefits.
For those who don't know, sorry to interrupt, but for those who don't know, Medicaid, Medicare go by the same guidelines as Social Security. So, and Medicaid and Medicare are what fund things like wheelchairs for disabled people if they need one, medication, some of which is outrageously expensive. The Medicaid waiver, depending on which waiver you're on, can help you with money toward accessible vans. So stuff we need on a daily basis. That's exorbitantly expensive.
Exactly. And there are millions of disabled people who just cannot afford health insurance. And so Medicaid comes in and is the safety net to provide them with health coverage. But if you, as we said, if you get married, then what happens is your Social Security benefits will either be cut or totally lost, and your Medicaid benefits will also be lost.
Depending on how much money you guys make combined.
Exactly. So there's two factors that kind of depend. So it depends what exactly, which Social Security benefits you get specifically, because different programs will have different rules about what percentage, of what state you're in, even though it's a federal program.
SSDI and SSI have slightly different rules, and the asset limits are the same because that's a federal guideline. But and the marriage penalty is the same because that's a federal guideline. But the salary varies slightly depending on which state you're in.
Yeah, and so for most people, if you have more than $2,000 in assets, you'll lose your Medicaid and your Social Security will be cut or lost. And if you get married, that asset limit doesn't go to 4,000, it actually drops to 3,000. And so it's near impossible to be married and not go over the asset limit for Medicaid and Social Security. And so it makes it impossible. And even if you're not legally married, but you live with your partner, there's a provision, what they refer to as the holdout rule. That's like the colloquial term for it. And it basically means if you're holding yourself out to the community as married, if you appear to be married, or if you're doing something that looks like marriage, even if you're not calling it marriage, you're treated the same way by the system. And so you can be investigated for fraud under the holdout rule, and then your benefits are put back in the same place as if you were legally married, even if you just live together. And living together is, from what we're told, is basically like the biggest offense on that scale when they're trying to decide if two people are holding out and pretending to not be married when they're living as married. Living together is like, in some ways, the most egregious thing you can do.
So the only possible workaround to this, and I say possible, is that some states have a living caregiver option on these waivers, including Virginia. Theoretically, the only workaround would be one of two things. Would be either A, pay rent to your partner so they can look like your landlord, or B, have your partner registered as the living caregiver and then have separate accounts. And that is calculus because you have to be meticulous about it. You should not have to do calculus if you want to be married as a disabled person. That's ridiculous.
And also, it's ridiculous because it puts a lot of people in a position of coercive control or potential abuse because of relying on your partner for that care as well, and those finances.
And if your partner was rich and abusive, they could say, oh, I'm your only way off these waivers and these crazy limits that they put on you. You have to stay.
So
it's just a little light documentary topic.
Right. The movie's a lot more fun than it sounds.
Yeah.
Despite that it's about this topic. But
it is so funny. Oh my gosh, it's so funny. Ted, how did you know Patrice and come to make this film?
Sure. So I'm the director of the film, and I've been lucky enough to know Patrice over 20 years at this point. And we met through her niece, who is a singer-songwriter named Kimia Dawson. And the first music video I ever did, like right out of college, was for Kimia. I was a big fan of her music, and we met. And so then her and I became friends, and she would come to town like 3 or 4 times a year on tour or just passing through. And Patrice would always come to the shows, and so would I. And so we would all end up hanging out together. And so we would see each other pretty regularly. And then we just always kept in touch over the years. And then a few years ago, I was working on a series for Netflix called Warren Stories, which one of our producers, Emily Spivak, had created. And we ended up like getting Patrice into one of the episodes. It was just a little like 6-minute segment. And we brought her in, and I got to see, not shockingly, but I got to see Patrice is really comfortable on camera. She has like no problem being filmed.
That's an understatement, by the way.
I know, I know, right? Totally, right? And again, not shocking, but it's just one of those things. It's good to know for real. And then, it was fun doing the segment, and it was by far the most popular part of the whole series. It was like her one segment in that one episode. And so it was pretty clear that there was like more to do with her. And honestly, from the first moment I met her, it was just like, someday I'm going to do something with this person. I don't know what it is, but she's just this charismatic, wonderful. She walks in and it's the party has started. You just want to be around her. She's just such a charismatic, beautiful person, and has a great like artistic vision and aesthetic. And I just always knew that there was going to be something at some point. And then, so it felt around this time after the series, and I had wrapped another big project, and it felt, oh, maybe it's time to start talking to Patrice about something. Then right around that time, Gary had proposed to her. And so suddenly that felt, oh, wait, that's the thing. That's the story. I can say at the time, I didn't know as a non-disabled person that the marriage penalty was even a thing. And so I was pretty horrified to find out about that. And it just felt, oh, we have to do something about this.
So you approached Patrice about making this film, and her reaction is what?
Because at first we didn't even know what it was about. It just felt like, hey, I think Emily and I and her like all had lunch together, and it was like, hey, what if we did a thing? I don't know what it would be, but maybe it's something. And first it was like, is it a documentary? Is it maybe a kid's show? Who knows? We were trying to figure out we were just, what's going on in your life? What's happening? Are there things going on that feel like a story? Because when you're making a film about somebody, you need something to be happening, right? So we were trying to figure out what was going on. And we just started having these conversations. And then one day we found out that Gary had proposed. And so that suddenly felt, okay, this is like a new mission, a new thing that's happening in your life that's incredibly important and is bigger than the two of them.
So what was the process of making the film? And just tell us what the process was. How long did you film? All that stuff.
We shot it took 3 years to make the project from beginning to end, almost exactly from the first shoot to the premiere. And so as soon as, actually, even before we knew about, even before Gary had proposed, actually, we had already started shooting a little bit. We just felt like when Patrice had stuff going on in her life, it was just, okay, we'll just show up and start filming. Because in the beginning, you're feeling each other out too. You're just like, let's see if you like being filmed. Let's see if you like being filmed at home. Let's see if you like, because it's an ongoing process and you're doing it all the time. And sometimes it can really wear people down. So in the beginning, you're just like, let's make sure we can do this and still be friends. Let's just start there.
Let's make sure we can live with each other for like months or years.
Yeah,
and then
exactly. Because it becomes a real intimate, it's an intimate relationship. We had the good fortune of already knowing each other. So we already knew each other for a long time. We already trusted each other. We already had a shorthand with each other. But I didn't know Gary half as well as I knew Patrice. I also didn't know Elizabeth. And so we just started filming and getting in the flow of it. And then we probably shot on average of 2 or 3 times a week for 2 years, maybe longer. Because I guess we were filming even throughout the edit too. Technically, we were probably actually filming 3 years because we kept going back for stuff. And sometimes it would be like a multiple camera shoot. That was very rare. Usually it was just me shooting with the sound person. And sometimes it was literally just me shooting and doing sound, which is ill-advised, but sometimes that would lead to a more intimate session because it's just one person and it's easier. You
got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
Films are expensive, so.
Yes, well, and that too. Some of it was just monetary for sure. And then eventually we came up with the idea of doing these recreation scenes that happen in the film. And for folks who haven't seen it, we have this whole storyline where we revisit Patrice's like past. and tell you the whole story of how she ended up where she is at the beginning of the film. And to tell that story, what we came up with was basically doing these recreation scenes that were done in the style of a school play. And Patrice plays herself, no matter what age she is in the story. And all of the other parts are played by kids. And they're being done on a stage, and they're happening on these sets that were all designed by Patrice, all her original artwork from all these places in her past that she remembers.
Which is amazing. She's an amazing talent of, I'm like, how does she do that? I can't do that.
Absolutely. And it was so important for us to get her aesthetic and vision into the film, and that eventually became the way that we figured out, oh, that's the way we could like really, make her artwork and her aesthetic like a key like hallmark of the film.
How did you go about filming those scenes? Because some of those scenes were so tough to, and it is a hilarious film, so go watch it. But some of those scenes were so tough to watch as well. I read that there was a trauma-informed counselor on set.
Yeah, we had Dr. Laura Quiros, who is just an absolute gem of a human being, and we really thought that it was essential to have her not only on set but throughout the filmmaking process, for Patrice to have a sounding board and someone that could support her through all of the kind of really difficult themes that were dealt with, both in her past and some of the things that were happening in the present. And I think one of the things that we didn't realize as the producing directing team was that even some of those, the incredibly happy and joyous moments that happen in the film, which are a huge release and ecstatic for everyone, but those were actually really quite difficult for Patrice.
Oh yes, some of those can be the most difficult because that's when you're like most raw, I guess. It's hard to explain.
Yeah, but we had a wonderful, like an incredible crew for the recreations, and an amazing DOP, Ali Spengler, who is just a legend. And it was, I think, one of the most accessible and the best kind of set certainly that I've ever worked. And it was a mixture of disabled crew and cast to really reflect the intersections of people on screen.
Which is, it's cool that you guys did disabled crew too, because they're affected by some of this too, right?
Yeah.
So were you surprised at the reaction the film got?
It's a good question. I think on one hand, it's yes and no. It's like on one hand, I mean, we all love the film, and it still hits us hard, I think, when we watch it. And
Oh
we
yeah.
felt like,
I was
well,
like
of course, on one
crying.
hand, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was crying and then I was laughing and then I was crying again.
Yeah, so it's like I think on one hand, we expected that was going to be other, or we hoped at the very least that was going to be other people's reactions. But I do think in some ways, some of the reactions that we got were a lot bigger and splashier than I think we ever would have expected. Some things were a total curveball to us.
The statement. How I first heard about the film was, I don't normally watch The View. I don't normally like The View, to be honest. But I saw this headline on the View YouTube channel because I love YouTube. It's by far my most watched streaming service, I guess you could call it. And I saw this headline that said something about disabled person wants to marry a partner but can't because of restrictions. So I clicked on it and I watched the interview. And at the very end of the interview, you said Social Security released a statement saying we want to acknowledge the creators of this movie and that we are ready to make certain changes, but Congress has to approve it. And when you said that, I started screaming and I immediately tweeted out, find a representative, go tell them to correct this. Were you surprised when that statement came out?
Shocked.
Yeah, I mean, it was, what was incredible is that it was less than 24 hours after the film had been released on Hulu and Disney. And it's so satisfying, I think, as like filmmakers and as also like a disabled person within the disabled community, to feel like you are affecting change. And for the social, like for us, social security services to recognize the film and recognize that needs to be changed and that they're there to support the government in doing that is just enormous. And it was incredible. Actually, a couple weeks ago, Patrice was also invited to the White House to, you can talk more on that, Ted. But
Oh, no, yeah, you're right. So, yeah, Patrice got invited to the White House to a dinner there and was sat right next to President Biden at dinner. And they carved out time for her to get up and say some words about the importance of creating marriage equality and ending the marriage penalty for disabled people. And Biden gave a speech at the event that was broadcast on C-SPAN and name-checked Patrice in it and mentioned the fight to end the marriage penalties for disabled people in his speech as well, which also just felt like so surreal
I
that
know
both of
that
these things happened within 2 months of the film coming out.
that was like, I don't care what your part is. That was so surreal to have a sitting president acknowledge the marriage penalty. That was amazing.
Also, too, because the biggest thing, like, so all of there have been advocates who have been working on this issue for years and years on the front lines, getting this stuff, getting these bills drafted and pushing legislators. And they keep telling us that their biggest obstacle to getting change on this issue is just awareness. And so we hoped that we could help with that, but we were shocked at like the level of awareness that was created in only a couple months. Having Social Security Administration had never admitted that this was something that needed to change. They had never said that publicly, and they never put any pressure on Congress at all to do anything about it. So the fact that they did that, and then we have the president also saying it too. One of the things it really helps with is it creates political cover for politicians who might be on the fence about it. That it'll push them over to actually support it, because there are, as much of as it seems like a non-issue, like why wouldn't they support this? There is this idea, other than what they're saying is the cost, which personally I think is, but the other part of it is that we've also been told from DC insiders is like the other problem is that there's fear on both sides of the aisle of having an attack ad being made against them saying so-and-so voted to spend your Social Security faster.
Yeah, tax dollars faster.
Exactly. And so if there's public support around the issue and it's seen as a good thing, then those fears can be lessened. And that might be something that, again, can help this thing get passed. So we're happy to do our part.
So what's next for you guys? Are you shocked that it's getting Oscar buzz? Because I posted something when I saw the Oscar contender list. And for those of you who don't know, a contender list is movies that are likely to be nominated or they think could be nominated. So were you shocked when you saw the contender list come out?
It was certainly nice to see that we had made the list. One way in which you have a little bit of a disadvantage in going for the Oscars, we premiered in the fall at the Toronto Film Festival, and a lot of the other films in contention started in January at Sundance. And so they've had a year to get on people's radar and to get people to see them. And so it was exciting to see that we were already considered a contender, even though we'd only been in the world for 2 months or 2.5 months at that point.
So what's next for this issue and for you guys regarding this or any other projects you're working on?
I am, the film, I think the film is just going to have its own life. We're going to be continuing with the award season and hoping that awards aren't important to us, but getting the message out there and raising that awareness is, and bringing this movie to people who feel like they can relate to this issue and that it affects is really important to us. So I think we plan on having more conversations like this and talking to more people. And we also, we all have our own kind of individual projects that are going on. And we also have an impact campaign that is fronted by Rosemary McDonald Harita, who is another icon we've been working with. And that is going to consist of some online teachings, perhaps some performances, and other exciting things. And we're currently raising funds for the impact campaign for that to happen.
Where can people go to find out more about these issues, write to their representatives, keep up with you guys, all that stuff?
The easiest place is to go to patricethemovie.com. And one of the things you can do there is so you can sign up to follow along and get updates as we have them. What you can also do is there's a button on the website that says Take Action. And if you're based in the US, you can go on there, you put your address in, And then it immediately brings up all of your elected representatives. And then right there's a window where you can write them a letter and tell them that you support disabled marriage equality, you support an end to the marriage penalty. And there's links there where you can also read more about, so there's 4 different bills that have been proposed that kind of come at the marriage penalty from different angles and in different ways. And some combination of those bills would have to pass in order for the marriage penalty to truly be eradicated in the US.
So what are the 4 bills? I know 2 is the SSI Savings Penalty Elimination Act and the SSI Restoration Act. What are the other 2?
So the other one off the top of my head is Jimmy Panetta's bill, which we talk about in the film. And the 4th one, I honestly don't remember off the top of my head, but I can look it up. But we have links to all of that on the website. And and like supporting those bills is like the next step. Now, granted, some of them are in worse places than others, I will say, in terms of their chance of being passed. However, the important thing is, like, even more so than tagging a specific bill that you want passed, it's still good to mention that in the email, but like just saying that this is an issue that you support is pretty key, and getting that word out to elected officials and just keep bombarding them. And hopefully we're making it really easy for people to be able to do that.
I have this thing on that's connected to my LinkedIn called Signal Hire. It's expensive, but it's worth it because you can find anybody's email through their LinkedIn, whether it's listed or not. And so I happened to find Tim Kane's, which is one of our senators here, legislative correspondent. And I actually had a call back from her, and I almost didn't answer the phone because it said no caller ID. But I'm like, I am expecting a call from Social Security, so let me check and make sure it's not them. And she's, hello, this is Maya so-and-so, I forgot her last name, from Tim Kane's office. And I about dropped the phone. And she did call me back, so shout out to Tim Kane's office. So the bug is in their ear more now than it has ever been. So we need to keep pushing to get this passed.
The advocates who work on this every day have reminded us that, technically speaking, there has been bipartisan support for these bills when they've tried to introduce them. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that we can still do this. And so we should keep the pressure on, keep pushing. It's possible.
It is definitely not out of the realm of possibility. I honestly am more optimistic about what this administration can do with this issue than a lot of people. So I'm definitely excited to see if we can do this in the next 4 years.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. The thing that takes the wind out of our sails a little bit is that their stated goal is to try to cut Medicaid benefits by 50%. That's what they've been saying. Our hope is that they will not be successful in that.
We just have to prove to them that this is not fraudulent. This is a legitimate issue.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you guys so much for being here. This will be out sometime in 2025 because I want to make sure it gets edited correctly and everything. Cool. But anything you guys need, anything Patrice needs, I'm here.
And so one of the things I should also say is that in addition to Patrice the movie, Kyla also produced and created and stars in her own show on the BBC called We Might Regret This, which is a phenomenal scripted series. And we're hoping that it will be accessible in North America really soon. But until then, find a way to hack yourself into the BBC iPlayer and go watch it because it's an amazing show.
I will be using my VPN to watch.
There you go.
Great. I will cover my ears. Thanks for the plug, Ted.
So you guys are welcome back anytime.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes.
We will see you guys next episode. Bye, guys. So I really hope you guys enjoyed that episode. Again, I hope you'll learn more about this issue and educate yourself and then fight for change with us if you would like. We really do need your help. We really do need public support behind this because, as you heard in the podcast, one of the biggest reasons that they have not passed the bill yet is public support and awareness. So we definitely do need your help. Tell your friends about this issue. Tell your friends to listen to this. Tell your friends to watch the movie. If you have any questions, I don't usually do this, but my email, if you have any questions, it's on our Instagram, both my Instagram and Real With It. With this Instagram, you can just hit the email button. But the email address is hello@realwithit.com. Again, that's hello@realwithit.com. Or you can just hit the email button on either my Instagram or the podcast Instagram, or if you're on my Out Rio Out Play Out Last Instagram, that's our occasional Survivor recap show. You can hit the email button on there too, and it will all take you to the same email. But again, that's hello@realwithit.com. And if you have any questions or want more information about how to help, you can just email me. And if you want to talk to me face to face, I would be more than happy to schedule a Zoom call with you. And so I really hope that you guys will get behind us and get behind this issue. And I really hope you enjoyed the podcast. They were amazing to talk to. They're really amazing human beings for getting behind this. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. We will see you guys next time. Bye, guys. Subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening to this, or go to realwithit.com/subscribe. And if you subscribe on YouTube or Spotify, hit the bell. It really helps us out. So subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening by hitting the subscribe or follow button, or go to realwithit.com/subscribe.
Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed the show. Remember to follow the show and our guests on social media and subscribe. Be sure to hit the bell so you'll get notified when we upload new episodes. See you next time.